You graduated from Penn in 74. Did you continue to run competitively after 74? We had the Olympic boycott in 1980. I'm sure you have fond memories of Jimmy Carter's decision. And did that have any influence over you in terms of stopping to run and to train?
Well, I wouldn't say my memories of the boycott are fond memories, but let me back up a minute. So prior to commencement day from Penn, I actually enlisted in the United States Marine Corps so I could become one of Uncle Sam's misguided children. Um, I learned about the benefits of the Marine Corps from two middle distant greats, Juris Luzens and Howie Michael, both of whom ran for Harry Groves, who was the Penn State coach that I was talking to up in the stands, before going into the Marine Corps. And we talked about the benefits of the Marine Corps and how amateurism rules being what they were at the time, it was very, very difficult for someone to continue competing beyond college and have a livelihood. And I've always been a rules kind of guy. And I didn't want to break rules or risk violating anything and getting caught. And so I was looking for a legitimate way to continue my running career. And the Marine Corps gave that to me. So I went off to officer candidate school that August, was commissioned a second lieutenant in October, and started running races shortly thereafter. During that time, the 76 trials the 76 games were on the horizon. And I certainly saw myself as a legitimate contender for making that team, as the Marine Corps did, because one of the things that they allowed me to do was to take a leave of absence, take a temporary assignment here in Philadelphia, and I returned to Philly. And from January through the trials, I trained in Philadelphia under Coach Tuppeny and was gearing up for the trials to make the Olympic team. Funny thing happened on the way. Even though I was confident that my training was far superior to what I had done as a Penn student, things started to go south. I was having a lot of problems cramping up and the like, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And so at the service championships that spring, I was scheduled to run the 5, the steeple, the mile, and the relay, 2-mile relay. And I think it was in one of the trial heats of the mile, I just felt this really bad twinge, and I said, like, I need to pull out of these other events. And I asked to do so. Regrettably, was not permitted to do so. And so I competed in all of the events, I think further damaging my body. A week or so after that, I'm at the national championships, and I am just destroyed. I somehow advanced to the final, but was in no condition to even finish the race. I find myself on the infield, lying down in agony with about 100 meters left. The Olympic trials are 10 days away, and I'm thinking, like, there's, how am I going to do this? With the help of Dr. Leroy Perry, who was a great chiropractor, he worked with me and was able to get me to the starting line at the trials. So big fan of chiropractors. They do great stuff. So Dr. Perry gets me to the starting line, and he says, Denis, I can get you there, but you have to run the race. I don't know how things are going to progress. Somehow I managed to advance out of the trials into the semis. Even though the leg cramping, it did reoccur, but I still advanced. And in the semis, Dr. Perry got me to the starting line, but unfortunately the cramping started earlier. And as you can imagine, the semis are far more aggressive than the trials. I do not advance out of the semis. So when I got back to base, I asked for a physical. to try to figure out what was wrong with me. And I got a call a couple of days after the physical. The Navy doctor, he said, "Lieutenant, I got great news for you. There's nothing wrong." And I'm thinking like, well, sir, that's not really great news, because if you're telling me that there's nothing wrong, then that means I'm the biggest head case there ever was. And I said, would you please review all of my tests, and let me know what you find. He calls me a couple of days later. His tone now is very different. He's very apologetic and sympathetic. And he says, "Lieutenant, I'm really sorry. We cannot find anything wrong with you." And I said, "Captain, there has to be something. There absolutely has to be." And he said, "Well, we only found one error on your record." And I said, "Well, what error is that?" And he said, "Well, your record has you as 6'1". And I said, "Well, I am 6'1", maybe a tad tall, but I consider myself 6'1". And he said, "Lieutenant, I know that you've been away training. When was the last time you had your Class A Alpha uniform on?" And I said, "Well, I haven't had it on since, it was probably sometime in either late December or early January." He said, "Go put your trousers on." I put those trousers on. I was walking around in high waters, and I couldn't believe it. And he said, "Lieutenant, I don't know how to tell you this. You have growing pains. The muscle has not kept pace with the bone growth." And it's like, "Oh, okay. So okay. Now that we know what it is, what can you give me? What can I do?" And he said, "Nothing. You just have to wait and for the muscle to catch up with the bone growth." So I was out of commission for a while, and resumed training about 8 months later. Ran a couple more races for the Marine Corps before ending my tour of active duty. And so on July 1, 1977, my tour of active duty ended. On July 2nd, Doris and I got married. I then, that fall, started graduate school at Wharton grad. And during the Wharton years, I did train, competed, but not much. Post graduation from Wharton grad, resumed my training in earnest. 80 games were approaching, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm a little older. Forget about the mile. I'll focus on 5K and steeplechase. Surely I'll make the team in one of those events, if not both. And so the training was going well. Everything was going well until President Carter, our commander-in-chief, decided that the correct course of action for Russia's invasion into Afghanistan was to boycott the Olympic Games. I was devastated. I may not have been on active duty, but I was still a Marine Corps officer. Commander-in-chief says, this is a better option than going into battle with Russia in Afghanistan. And I agreed on that point. It certainly was better than to going into battle. And so I was again conflicted about, what was I going to do? For me, the answer came with a very quick, abrupt stop running, stop training. Just, it's over. I'm going to be too old in '84, so I have to stop now. And about a month or so after that, I get a call from Marty LaCourie. Marty keeps coming in and out of my life. I was running for Athletic Attic after the Marine Corps. Athletic Attic was a club that Marty started, and they had outlets all over the US. And so I'm running for Athletic Attic. We're talking, and Marty is saying, "Well, why don't you come down, run Florida Relays? We could use you down here because we're going to be going for a team title at Florida Relays." And I said, "Well, Marty, that's not really going to happen because I've already stopped running, and it's been over a month since I've run a step. I haven't done anything." At which point, and bless Marty for this, he said, he said, "Denis, this is not the way to end your career. If you just stop running like this, you'll
regret it."
Yeah, I'm going to regret it. I'm going to be angry. He says, "You need to find a way. You need to bring closure." And he said, I still want you to come down and run the Florida relays. And so, I started thinking about it. It sort of made sense about finding closure. I needed a good exit strategy. So I took a leave. I was working at Penn as the judicial officer at the time. And I took a leave, went down to Florida and started lightly training, just trying to see if there's any familiarity at all. Can the legs do anything? And so I ran a few races. I must have been down in Florida for about 3 weeks. Ran a few races there, came back in time for Penn relays, had reached out to Tup and said, Tup, I have to run the Ben Franklin mile one more time. And he graciously said, sure,
We'll fight this time.
And he said, Al, anything you want, come on and run. And so I had mentioned to Tup that I was going to be retiring after the race. And he had assembled a great race. I mean, the competitors in that race were super. Marty, unfortunately, didn't make the trip. He had somehow gotten injured and didn't come up for the run. But in the race, Eamon Coughlin, Paul Cummings, Rod Dixon, Craig Masbeck, Steve Scott, and John Walker.
Yeah.
I mean,
nice.
At that time, you could not assemble a better field than that. I mean, world record holder, Wilson Wigwam was also in there. I mean, it was a great group of athletes. And it was my farewell party. At least that's the way I looked at it.
Right.
And so I still wasn't in great shape. Race goes off, gun goes off. I'm having a ball out there. I even led for a while. I'm not quite sure where I actually finished in the race. Probably 4th or 5th. In a stellar 4:03, I think I ran. Just really burning up the track. But the most amazing thing happened. As I'm crossing the finish line, lagging behind the leaders, Jack O'Reilly, the announcer, the famed announcer of the Penn relays, announces to the crowd, ladies and gentlemen, you've just seen Denis Fikes run his last race at Franklin Field. And the place went wild. It was like the Penn students in the quad all over again. Right. The crowd, they standing ovation. I was asked to do a victory lap. I mean, when does the 4th place finisher get to do a victory lap? It was unbelievable, but it was such a very special and heartwarming way to end my competitive track career. And it'll always be memorable. And after that race, I sort of transitioned into road races, which was a lot of fun. That was clearly run for fun. And I did that up until 86.